Well, you know what they say about a small percentage. It's still a percentage. I know I'm on the air. Yeah. We can case and everything.
Yeah.
It's, what they say, like when they talked about the polls, when they talk about the polls like, what do you name, Trump and all that? What's his name? Nate Silver?
Yeah, your boy.
My boy say, he never said that it's not,
It's
if it's a 75% chance that Hillary would win, it's still a 35% chance that Trump would win.
75 and 25.
Sorry, 25. Yeah, it would still be a 25. Well, it would be 35. Definitely.
I don't know.
It would be a 25. It would still be a 25% chance that he could win, right? And that's what happened. The 25% chance. Anyway, yeah. So yeah.
But I don't believe.
What I saw? I saw interesting because certain people reserve the right to say certain things. I mean, people will respond to it, but certain people. Almost said purple, reserve the right to say certain things. Now, here's a headline. It was in the Guardian as well. I mean, this is in the Tribune. Fighting crime will cost some freedoms. Okay, and I think there's
That's the Christian Council?
Yes. Fighting crime will cost some freedoms, warned BCC. And then in the Guardian had another thing. So in other words, what they're saying is that in order for us to combat this, there's certain kind of rights that may be infringed upon in order to fight this, right? If me or you had said that, we could have even maybe been attacked by the BCC. You never know. You see what I'm saying? But certain people can say things, and then it's okay. I don't know, maybe because the big G is involved.
Or maybe it's not okay. That's just their side now. You never know what could be said tomorrow.
That's true, too. But you see, there's going to be a certain group of people who will just follow them, right? Who will just follow that. But having said that, I actually believe that should be the case. Okay?
To what extent?
Well, for instance, roadblocks. Okay? Fred Smith had argued many years ago that roadblocks are unconstitutional. No, I don't think they are. See,
I agree with him on that.
Well, fine, but I see, it's like this. Let's just say you're in a war. Okay? You know me, I like to go to my thing. Let's say you're in a war. Yeah, but you know how I go. Let's say you're in a war, and there are spies that are causing, things and doing things, or people smuggling weapons to the other side. But you're in a war. Well, in that scenario, there's certain exceptions you're going to have to take, and it's allowed to take under War Act and all that kind of stuff.
To
safeguard the greater good. See that? That's so, if I'm like driving around and I got some, grenades in the car, okay, to take to the other side that'll blow up, the Capitol or something like that, and they put a barricade to stop me to just do a precursory search of the car, see who I am and all that. Hey, because I don't really want to get blow up. You see what I'm saying? It's like, when you're going into a stadium, they pat you down. Maybe some people say, well, I don't think you should be patting me down.
But what I don't like about the roadblocks is, I think that sometimes there are certain people who are targeted more than others.
Yeah.
What's the P word?
Profiling.
Oh yeah, profiling. There you go.
Yeah, what's wrong with you? You don't know the P word? You're saying it, but you don't know what you're talking about.
The P word could be many things.
No,
but
it's
anyway.
you don't like profiling.
Anyway, so it's profiling, targeting,
you want
right?
To say targeted.
No. I don't have a problem with profiling, right? So when you see a champagne-colored Honda, and I could be driving a champagne-colored Honda.
Yeah, but you don't have the
tough. So can. My hair is natural. I have a brother who has natural hair, who has locks.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's certain people that they look at and they say, oh, let me,
Let me give you an example of what you're talking about.
Extra scrutiny on this individual.
You say, for instance, you see, like the Rastafarians came and say, we want to smoke dope. Okay. Now, I support. I believe
you support it even without the Rastafarians.
Yeah, the Rastafarians. As we say in Jah say, we on one accord, man, or Jah or whatever. Okay, all right. So as you would say, if the order of the day, okay, is that dope is illegal, and you say you're a Rastafarian, well, you're going to get searched because they know it's your religion to smoke dope. So you get put on the side.
But you might not be traveling with marijuana.
That's true.
That might be something you consume in the privacy of your own home.
That's true too. But you have made a public pronouncement.
But
I like dope.
But not all Rastafarians smoke marijuana.
Yes, boy.
Not all Rastafarians.
Well, maybe so.
No, that's not true.
Well, it's true. Like all human beings don't eat meat. I get you. But the point I'm saying is they've made a public pronouncement that me with the coat with the robe and the Simpsons hat and everything, we smoke dope. So when the police
and the guy who is dressed in the coat suit and he's an attorney and he's driving down the road, he smokes dope too.
But he ain't made no pronouncement. The coat suit people ain't make no pronouncement.
Don't matter.
Okay? You see what I'm saying?
But you see how the profiling, you might profile that based on that pronouncement, and that might be the roster who doesn't smoke it, and you let the person drive on by who does.
But that's
why I don't like profiling.
I don't like it either, except I see why it happens. If I'm driving down the highway, right, and I'm afraid of the KKK, when I see the truck with that like picture with the cross, what do you call it? The Confederate flag.
Oh,
the Confederate flag in the back with the gun rack. I profile him. I say he like the KKK. This is what we do. You and I had a long conversation about this, by the way.
How many hours was that?
It was long.
Lord
okay?
mercy.
The reality is people do this. Like I told you, I'm being prejudiced, because that's what it is when you're profiling. You're being prejudiced, right? Until they get a bunch of Norwegians. And you point trouble on the Norwegians that have been doing the Allah blowing up and all that stuff. Or let's take it away from the Norwegians. Until they find some 3-year-olds who are blowing up planes, then I think we can let the 3-year-olds go by for now. Because I'm not aware of any 3-year-olds who are strapping bombs to themselves.
But they do have young children who
15, 16-year-olds, yeah.
And do you remember when the beheading was going on and they were filming that? Remember they had this little boy who must have been like 6 or 7 detonating a bomb and blowing up people in the car. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that one.
I remember that.
But I also know that if you're going to go after the 4-year-olds, watch this now. Watch the profiling. I know what section of people I go after for the young children. Okay, I'm not going after the young Venezuelans. Okay, or the young Haitians. I will be going after the young, Lebanese or whatever. That's just the way it is. Okay, all of us. I know no one wants to say it.
But
we go on the plane, and if you see someone get down right before we go on the plane, that gate where they say, Group A, when right before they call, we want to board Group A now. If right before they board Group C, you see someone get down with a little mat, and look to the east, because you have your compass. You have your compass, so you see it was to the west, but it's to the east. Okay, which way are you pointing? East? Okay. Listen, I want to take the next flight. Okay? Because why is he praying right before he go on the plane? Okay?
You'd be scared.
You're going to think about it. That's the point. I mean, he could be praying just because he doesn't want to crash.
Right. I was going to say, with a Christian who bows his or her head in prayer.
But right now, but we don't have a lot of Christians blowing up the planes.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay? So this is what we have to do. We have to take precautions based on the info. We talked about this before about stereotyping.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I mean, what is, this is what it is. Okay, there'd be no such thing as a stereotype
if it didn't happen.
If a lot of people in that group didn't do that.
So beyond the roadblocks, what other human rights, civil rights, you have no issue with them rolling back in order to get the crime situation under control? I was at one point advocating, and I don't know if this is accurate, if I can go down this road, because I know it's so much abuse involved in this, of search my house for guns, for illegal guns. I'm not proposing, I'm just saying, we got a gun problem, man. We have a gun but we need to
problem.
figure out, we get to get the genesis of this, because we don't manufacture
the
these
genesis.
things.
The genesis is we have all these borders.
So how are they getting in? I've always said that I have a severe problem with the fact that a lot of people are coming rolling up in here on private planes, and people be like, oh, it's not searched.
Well, but that might be the people who, maybe they have to go into
the boats come
maybe
through,
that's some of the rights that have to be infringed. Go on the private planes too. I get
searched when I go fly commercial.
I didn't say which people to search.
No. I know you didn't. I'm just saying, when we always talk about this gun problem, we're not making them around here. So obviously they're being brought in.
We have to get the supply, and we have to get the supplier, and we have to get the inventory, the people who keeping them. It's a big problem. It's a big problem.
These high-powered weapons.
I don't even, it's just crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah. So I mean, I understand your perspective.
I don't know what those rules are that they have to break, but I think he was saying, it's going to have to be something. I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
You know.
Boy, this is. Oh, we got.
We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. Our guest right now we're going to bring in is Mark Humes from the Bahamas Independence Committee. And then we're going to have Ace Newbold is our guest on today.
Oh,
we'll have from 6 o'clock. Yeah, the big Ace.
Okay.
So we'll be talking with Ace. But we're going to get Mark. He's going to tell us about all the festivities coming up.
Do it.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Roganne Smith.
Mm-hmm.
She's just had some bad news with regard to certain personal items, which we won't talk about.
Boy, I'm so mad.
You're scared, eh? You thought I was going to talk about it, eh?
Huh? No, I don't care. Oh, I don't care. You know that.
Well, listen, it's only, Anyway, so,
You know that ain't nothing to hide.
we see, Mark,
Sorry.
we talking about
sorry.
our thing, and no one even knows what we're talking about.
Hold on, this ain't gonna go.
Yeah. Plus, she's alky.
This is no.
You're alky. And see, it's not tame. It's not tame. Let me tell you why it wasn't tame. It was tame.
Well, what kind of show this is?
Yeah. And see, it's not only was it not. You know why you know it ain't tame? It wrap in brown paper bag. If it's a regular drink, you just keep it out.
That's why.
But once you have it wrap up,
I was like, hold on. What
Yeah,
kind of
shame.
show I just joined?
I totally forgot you now.
she forget. And then she asked me if I want one.
My bottle.
No drinks. And on top of that, she can't handle drinks, so things
I
might
don't
get out of
drink.
control.
So I just wanted something sweet.
Yeah,
and
what she might happen
good.
actually, when she doesn't she can just fall out.
Yeah, I feel better now when she pulled it
But
out. Show me what it was.
Anyway, Mark
That's
Humes
funny.
is with us, who is not only the MP for Fort Charlotte, but the chairman. Now, I hope I get this right, of the Bahamas Independence Committee, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
You're correct.
Yeah. So there's a whole slew of things. We're very critical.
Right.
You know that.
Have you heard us talk about Independence Day?
No, I
And the
didn't.
one thing,
Okay.
and it's so
Maybe
funny.
it's a good
Listen
thing
to
I
this.
didn't.
Listen to this, Rogan. So last night they got a good thing going on down there by the fort. They got Andy Gardner's got a brand new stage and everything. But the one thing, so I go down there, and Mark says to me, "Give me a couple minutes. I want to talk to the choreographers." And then the next thing I hear is he talk about the interpretive, or what you call it?
So that's some music.
So you got.
So
they
they
can't
have
have it. They can have it interpretive. Oh yeah, they're gonna have the interpretive every.
It's
every
all
year.
when you see it all come together.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
it's
extremely
fantastic.
beautiful.
Yes, I understand.
If you saw the numbers down there last night, just for practice, and that was.
But they never had those bands before. Hey.
No, not together.
Yeah.
Not playing together.
Okay.
And
like the marching bands.
all of the liturgical groups, because there are about maybe 10 to 12 different
Oh, you have to
liturgical
have,
groups coming.
They're imitating doves, I think. I think that's what it is.
No, man. That's,
what
that's
is
the
that?
Spirit of the Lord.
Yes, of course.
Come
Yeah.
down. Listen.
You got to have that gown.
Yes.
That white gown to emphasize purity.
You have you just have to be an appreciator of
The spiritual.
Yes.
Yes.
And I've come to understand over the past few months you're not much of an appreciator of religious, of the spiritual. So we'll excuse you.
And specifically the liturgical interpretive dance.
It's art.
Of course it is.
It is really an art form. It's a dance form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go with
Do you guys canvass like the views of people who? I mean, I know it's a bunch of people come out there for those events, but I mean, even post-event to find out what they liked from what they did not like.
We do.
And what are some of like the elements that they say they don't enjoy? Because
I think one of the main things that you hear, because it seems like independence, no matter what you do, boils down to Clifford Park, and previously you would always hear about the ecumenical service.
Yeah.
The ECU. I call it the ECU.
Ecumenical service. There's some who say, well, it should be in the church. It shouldn't. We don't really want that out here. Let's
put it
day. On a separate day. Let's have that as a church service.
Yeah.
You'll hear some say, well, it's the same thing, and it's those long, and no matter what goes on, they remember those 4-hour prayers that take place at the end. And so you hear these things and you say, okay, well, what could we do to make it more engaging? I don't feel as if in these kinds of setting that it's necessary to move them out of that place. This is a national celebration, and most national events begin with some sort of religious sort of ceremony, whether it's a prayer to get stuff started, or whatever the case may be. And so in this setting, I look at it as they're setting the the stage for what's to come. They're, getting us to that place, that place of reverence that for the rest of the ceremony. So in some ways, and I guess because I come from, I am.
You're a man of faith.
I am a man of faith, and I don't believe in hiding it and it being convenient only when it's convenient for certain times. We are, a Christian nation, and that idea is embedded in the Constitution, and we shouldn't run away from it and hide it away and only use it when it's convenient for us.
Do you not think, though, that, people always say that, you don't get much people. I mean, you get a lot of people, but you know what? Things, in my view, forget about this particular ceremony, right? Should be separated so that people who want that can get that, and people who don't want it can go and do. You know what I'm saying?
I'm afraid of that. I'm afraid of that kind of thinking.
Well, I don't know why you're afraid of that thinking.
I'm saying I'm afraid of that kind.
Not to interrupt you. You know why they have the
faith as well.
Yeah, she's
but I'm a woman of faith.
You know why they have it with the
I like it separated.
And Mark knows this. The good chairman knows this. And this isn't his fault.
Because nobody's coming to
the
the
reason
event.
they have it there is because they weren't getting crowds at their separate ceremony. That's the basic reason. This has nothing to do with Mark's position, but that was the reason.
I think when you look at the great number of persons who sort of fight to be a part of the celebrations on Clifford Park, recognize that this place is one of the places when you get a captive nation, all the eyes of say this nation and other places around the world are all glued to Clifford Park on that night. And, again, the only thing that I had requested is that we spruce it up a little bit, because I don't know, if I go to a church service, I want to have church. And so last year, and see, I was pretty. What do you say? This is not. You say it. This is not. This is not.
You know what? Yeah.
I don't want to listen. And I understand your perspective. Because in having conversations with friends, I say, well, if I go to Saudi Arabia, I do what they do, right? I mean, I have to respect the laws of the land, the religion. I have to understand what they do and how they practice, right? We're a little bit more liberal here. Yes, we do identify as a Christian nation, but there are Bahamians who don't identify as Christians. And there are people who do identify as Christians, but they just want to go out there and really focus on the independence aspect and have a good time.
Yes. And what is it? I would love to come back and look at this idea, the religious aspect of it. And, last year's theme is we've come this far by faith. At the root of who we are, is our religion.
But who prescribes that?
Well,
who makes that prescription?
Well, even where for again as a majority black nation, and when you go back to our roots, at the center of who we were as individuals then was our religion. When you look at a lot of these nations around the world, at the heart of who they are is their religious makeup. That's the soul of who we are.
Just so you know, we can kind of, because we want to talk about the ceremonies, right? Just so you know, I am not offended by people having a religious scenario. Not at all.
Neither am I.
Period. What I'm saying is, I know the synthesis. And the synthesis was from the beginning. See, they talk about reenactment. That ain't a reenactment. Because in the reenactment of it, they had an ecumenical service that was separate and apart from the raising of the flag and the fireworks, etc. Because, and I know this, so and Mark, I get to take the heat. Because I know, I can tell you from all the politicians I know, because people weren't coming. They say, listen, we don't want to just be doing this and no one coming. Put it in here so we could get the crowd. It's fine. But it's one of these days, you never know. Now, let's talk about the fact that other than the ecumenical and the liturgical, what else is going on? Because it's a very fun-filled. It is starting tomorrow, right?
Starting tomorrow at 10 a.m. in Rawson Square. We have the we have the official launch of the Independence Celebration and the flag raising ceremony. So this is where we get the week of activities kicked off. Tomorrow we'll have the first official appearance of our Governor General, the 11th Governor General.
Is it 11th, 9th, or it's the 10th or 9th? I mean, we couldn't be the 11th already. I think it's either 9th or 10th. No. By the way, you know why they say that? Because the first Governor General was actually a British person.
Exactly. Exactly. Before we became an independent nation. Right. Yeah, and this will be his first official ceremony. He was just inducted or invested, whichever word we want to use, last week. And so this will be his first official ceremony. We'll also have, some of our national entities out there. the National Youth Choir, National Children's Choir, National Orchestra.
So traffic.
Oh, I saw the tent out there. I was on my way here.
Yeah, those are for the numbers of persons that we're expecting out there tomorrow.
And that's from 10 a.m. to when?
10 a.m. until about 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
Okay. So avoid Bay Street.
Well, no, we want you to
I'm
come
talking
there.
about if you're driving.
Well, traffic will be diverted.
Yeah, but that's always a nightmare. But if you don't have to go through Bay Street,
yes,
avoid it. That's what we're saying.
Yes. Yeah. But we'd like for you to not avoid it and come down and join us.
No, you want people to come and do it. But if you're just going from west to east,
yeah. So we have that taking place on Friday, and typically when we did it in the past, same thing. We would try to have a celebration out there. We had performers, various local acts and the likes to keep the kids who are our major audience, to keep them entertained.
Right.
This year we decided again to try and change it up a little bit because it wasn't as well attended as we would have liked for it to be. So we decided to try something different this year, and so we moved away from the afternoon activity type event, and we moved that to Saturday, and that's now the Pride Folk Festival. We did this in partnership with the Downtown Partnership Group, headed by some folks.
The liturgical
hater.
The LH.
The LH, and part of what we looked at is as we continue to grow this independence tradition, we want to see how we can partner with a lot of organizations from the public community, from the private sector, so as to bring more persons involved, get more persons involved, get more people engaged. And so, Mr. Fields was very generous in coming in and partnering with us. He has a tremendous amount of experience in this type of thing. And this weekend, it's dedicated just to the folk aspect of who we are. Right. Folk music. Antonius Roberts has agreed to bring out some of his artists. They'll have their wares on display.
This is tomorrow?
This is Saturday.
Oh, this is Saturday.
Saturday.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, all day Saturday. I think it starts at 10 a.m.
Really around about noonish, but 10 a.m. Yeah.
So I'll let.
Well, it goes from 12 noon to 8 p.m. And basically we're closing off George Street, and you have Pompey Square and Marlborough Square and King Street. Yeah. So Antonius and his artists, the visual artists, will be set up on King Street. So you'll have a little artist enclave there. About 12 to 14 artists will be set up. Right. Then George Street will show all of our different food. Now we're doing it a little different. We're not having 10 stalls of snapper and peas and grits. No, we're going to have different foods, different more festival foods that you can walk around with. Then you're going to have the authentic Bahamian art crafts. And then, of course, my favorite, well, you'll have Junkanoo, of course, rushing up and down George Street 3 or 4 times during the day. And then my favorite is you're going to have 2 stages, one on Marlborough and one on Pompey, with pure rake and scrape music for the whole day. So it's going to be, it's a good thing to come out and just, we'll have some cool zones because it's going to be hot. You're going to have them, the misters.
Oh, yeah?
So you can go cool yourself down.
And tell them about the hay seats.
Yeah, Rogan has heard me talk about this before. So I didn't want to have those folding chairs sit, the thing. So what we did is I saw this when I was away. You always take ideas from away. So you get 2 bales of hay and a plank in between, and that's your bench. Okay, and so we're going to have several rows of that just so people, we don't want to create a lot of seating. We want people to move around. And the local suppliers, Bahamas Feed Supplies, helping us out with the hay, and Tops Lumber is helping us out with the planks. So it's very simple.
Take pictures of that for me.
I will. Very simple to set up. You put 2 bales of hay and you put a thing on, and that's it. You're straight.
Got a lot of sponsors who are joining us out there as well.
Yes.
We have sponsors like Alive, one of our principal sponsors. So Alive will be out there with all of their goods. They have a feature, actually, an app that they'll be debuting tomorrow out there that has all of the locations, I guess, throughout New Providence. And you can press it. It's like 3D, a 3D kind of app.
You've seen that 360 thing where you put it in, and it's a virtual thing, a virtual tour.
Yeah, and it pops up. It has, and someone tells you, like, there's a voiceover of what each historic landmark.
Nice.
It's very educational.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I like that.
When I saw it, I was like, I need one of these to walk around
really
and.
awesome.
But you got Sans Beer, you got Coca-Cola, and you know what they're featuring, man. I insisted they feature it.
Yeah.
The Gumbe Punch. Because I like that logo. I like that logo.
Don't
and then you
our
have
shirt, okay?
Echo. Say again? Yeah. I got to get some shirts. And Echo
Nautilus.
and water.
Yeah.
And you've also got who else is sponsoring us?
Bahamas Air.
Bahamas Air
is also a sponsor. Caribbean Bottling, and also the Point. You know, the Point is partnered. Point is partnered with us. So you'll have all of those persons out there with their wares or somehow engaged in what we're doing out there.
And all of our suppliers, and of course, I got my boy Freddie and Ronald Sims involved, but they're handling all the music.
Yeah.
We
have Bruce, Fred Ferguson will be on island, Tropical Depression.
I like that name, yeah.
Tropical Depression. That's a good TV. Yeah. Dicey Dose Singers, Pat Ramming. We'll have storytelling. Yeah, so it's going to be a real folksy day.
Yeah,
that's the word.
We're going to take a little break. We'll come back. We'll finish up with Mark later on. Ace is Ace here yet? I don't know if Ace will be on, and we'll talk about what's going on. But we'll be back with Mark in a second. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Fields along with Rogan Smith. She's not an LH, an NLH. I'm here with Mark Humes, who's the chairman of the Independence Committee. Our guest, the diva, is in the green room. Oh yeah, he can hear us. Mr. Ace Newbull.
He's right, he can hear us?
Well, I can tell him what I said when he come in. Yeah. What do you say? I hear you. I know you can take care of me when you get in here. Yeah. So Mark, listen, we're gonna want to get Ace in, because he's sensitive. Sure. So we got the thing on the 6th, which is a Saturday, which and that's gonna be fun. Please come down. I know it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna grow. Because it's gonna see now we got a fixture. You got the Flag Day the Friday before Independence every time.
Right.
The Saturday before Independence you'll have the Folk Festival. And then what do you have Sunday?
Beat Retreat. That's a staple, where we have all of our armed forces. But
they
this year they said it's going to be pretty unique because with the understanding that the theme is United We Stand, Together We Can. They're not going to make it as much of a competition as not as much as of a competition.
Right. As opposed to a show.
My understanding is going to be more of a partnership.
Okay.
So this is going to be interesting to see them come together.
Beat Retreat.
For that.
Then on Monday, what you got?
Then on Monday, all eyes actually turn to Grand Bahama. Because Grand Bahama is having their celebrations on Monday, and then we return back to Grand Bahama. To Nassau and Clifford Park on Tuesday.
And of course, on Tuesday, we'll have the ECU.
Medical service.
I always call it the ECU. I give it a little abbreviation. Make it sexy, man.
You gonna have a hard time that night if you come out there, then, because there's gonna be a lot of religiosity throughout this whole program. Like they say, this is the soul of who we are. The
soul of who we are. Yeah.
You can have that. You
know what I'm gonna do one of these days, though. You know how people used to streak?
Yeah.
I ain't gonna streak.
Oh my God!
No. I ain't gonna streak, Mark. I ain't gonna do that to you. But you know what I can do?
Don't do that to any
I can put on my dress, and I can join in the liturgical dance. Yeah, that can
well, you should do that this year because we have four satellite stages, and we're looking to put those dancers up on the satellite stages.
So they wouldn't even know idea.
That'd be the best ever.
So and then you have the ecumenical service and all that.
The cultural show, the fireworks.
And a surprise. Don't tell them the surprise. You know the surprise they mean.
What's the surprise?
We don't tell them.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is it's gonna be a show that we haven't seen here in the Bahamas before. And so that would be one reason you can't, and you won't be able to experience this on TV. You'll have to be there to actually experience it.
See, he's a salesman. I experienced it on TV before, but that's why he's a salesman.
But see, it's never as good on TV. I've seen it on TV before somewhere else too.
Yeah.
But this is going to be the first time that we do it here.
Yeah.
And
I remember.
I told you, but you ain't gonna tell me.
No, you said it on air.
I didn't say it on air. No, I told you. I didn't say it on here because I wanted to be a surprise.
Okay.
Listen, are we having the terrorists?
No.
Okay.
That'll be for the 50th.
Okay. No, take the terrorists out of the 50th.
Just say, please.
Are we having a shooting?
That's going to be for the 50th. But see, the 50th, God spare life. And listen, man, we are building towards the 50th.
Yeah.
So the 50th is going to be, God willing, if we're able to.
I can stick with you. I can stick with you. That ain't going to be in it. I can stick with you. That ain't gonna be in it. No, okay.
So after that,
You do the flag.
Then the flag.
Do the inspection.
Do the fireworks.
We know it by heart.
Yeah.
We know.
But we're going to change that up. And then comes the People's Love and Unity Rush, where, all roads lead to Bay Street at 1 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the state reception that takes place at Government House.
I was not invited to it. No, I'm sorry.
Well, because you need to be religious.
Yeah, that's what it is. But in that
you
case,
have a little bit of religion.
Hey, if that's the price, I need to go to Government House.
I only kid.
So listen, I've been to my share of them,
Yeah.
and I had enough Swedish meatball.
Yeah.
Listen, then you have on Wednesday.
On Wednesday
a
night.
different thing.
Yeah, because we've never done this.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, for most Bahamians, independence ended on Clifford Park after the fireworks on on the morning of July 10th. And then, the dignitaries went to Government House and hobnob up there, But then for the Bahamian people, that was it. It was like no finality to independence.
Right.
So we fought this year to have what we call, a closeout concert, a celebration for the Bahamian people. So we're encouraging people on that day, take that day, have some backyard picnics, bake some crab, fry some fish, have friends over like they do in the U.S. You see, they take that day and they celebrate that day, and then come on down to Clifford Park on that Wednesday night. And we have a all Bahamian concert starting at 7 p.m. 7 to 9 is our gospel section. Listen, Rogan. Listen, man.
I know I sound like the devil, right?
Listen.
I promise I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't listen. Let me hurry because y'all making me sweat. I sitting on two sides in the middle of two. You
Devils?
say devils, I will say devils, and y'all starting to make me sweat now.
She's
in here.
very religious, by the way.
Yeah. So 7 to 9. We have 7 to 9. We have the gospel concert. Groups like Harmonious Praise, Carrington McKinsey, Edison Sumner and Voices of Praise. Yes, Edison.
Voices of Praise.
Really?
Yeah.
Edison and Voices of Praise.
Band,
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Najee
nice.
Dunn,
Yeah.
New Voice from Golden Gates, Prophet Roll, Ricardo Clark, Therese Davis Nixon. I know most of us know her as Dynamite Daisy, but she's taking off Dynamite Daisy and putting on Therese Nixon that night. Shabak, Evangelist Emily Williams, Denzel Roll in France, Simeon Outen, and the list goes on during that section.
He said the singing bishop?
Yes, yes, ma'am. So
cook some rice.
from 9 to
one.
12, from 9 to 12 is our secular concert section. You'll have persons like Osano, Neely, Fanshawn, Blotty, Cupid, Puzzle, Funky D, Sammy Star, Julian Believe, Wendy, Dyson Knight, Rick Carey, Lady E, Gino D, Veronica Bishop, KB, D-Mark, the list goes on.
You did good
and
with that. I love it.
Yeah, and we're going to pay tribute that night to MDs as well.
Fantastic.
Because, he was supposed to have been a part of the show. And unfortunately, he was taken away from us. So we're going to pay a special tribute to him that
Mark,
night.
That's beautiful.
Listen, it's a big lineup, and I'm sure everyone's going to find something for everyone.
Yes, that's the purpose.
And I really appreciate you coming by so people can find what's going.
Thank you guys very much for having me here.
All right, my brother. Okay, we'll see what one of us have influence over each other over the next couple of years. Yeah. I know already you lose. Now I don't know if I lose too.
I got God on my side.
All right, my brother.
Thank you all very much.
It's been a pleasure working with you, man.
All right.
Man.
Good day, Bob.
Lord. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields, along with Rogan Smith, Ace Newbold, Anthony Ace Newbold, who, we go back a long way.
Long way.
It's amazing how you can transition. Let me use that word.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Good word.
But you know what else, too, Ace? You take it for granted that you see the generation above you. And you figure they were always serious.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't realize that they were just as not serious as we were not serious.
They were kids as well.
And most people make the transition because you get tired of doing what you used to do.
I think it's involuntary. Yeah. You don't have a choice, really.
That's true.
I just
Can't
your
handle it.
mind just don't go there. Yeah, your mind and your body won't let you do it.
But it's also the other part that is not a choice, and people have no clue what we're talking about. But the other part that is not a choice is this. You know, your whole, yeah, we knew. That's what's important. Real guy and I do the same thing. We have conversations. Ace and I are having a reminiscing conversation. Yeah,
we're on there.
That no one knows what we're talking about except me and him, and we have those kind of stuff. But you know, that's the thing. They have to listen to it. The thing is this. You know, when you talk about these involuntary decisions like, you know, age and all that, there's some other involuntary decisions like, so for instance, you know, a part of your youth is going to the club.
Absolutely.
Just go to the club.
All of them.
And why do you wish to go to the club? You wish to go to the club because if you're single, especially, you know, you're trying to, you know, you're on the prowl, checking out the situation. So when you get to a certain point in life, single or not, when you hit like around 30, 35, and this is when it happened for me. And I went to a club that is a very popular club, 35 years old, and I asked this young lady to dance, and her response to me was, "No, thank you, sir." Okay?
Yeah,
that's your involuntary.
Yes, that's your involuntary. And you know, that's also that
after you
Yeah. I know how you can invent that.
And you melt off the CNA after
I just kind of like, okay, well, that's an eye opener right now.
Listen, that's also the sign, because of course your just instinctive reaction is, who are you talking about?
Because you don't see yourself as
you don't see yourself as any sir.
Oh my gosh.
But of course, that's also a way of saying, you know, I ain't dealing with you.
Yeah, that's what it's
right?
Outward rejection. That's
absolutely.
It's a kind of way. It's outward rejection. Listen, man. You's old fogey.
You's old guy.
I ain't dealing with you. 19.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, you know, you 35, 30, but I was probably around about 30, 35, yeah?
That's not even old, but to them.
And you know? So, and in fact, I was married at the time, and I went on and told my wife, I said, I don't think I need to go to these clubs anymore, because I asked the gal to dance, she told me, no, thank you, sir. She said, that's you're right. Yeah, that's you know? But yeah, man, no, so, you know, anyway, good times. Hey, Steve Boy, how you been, man?
I'm good, man.
You know, you're doing the show.
Yeah, I was actually, I shot a show today.
Okay.
I know you want to know why I'm dressed this way.
No, like you always
I don't know why.
You always look polished.
Come on, you always dress that way.
That's just the norm.
I don't think I even see you in those shorts. You have shorts?
Yeah,
I think I may have one or two.
Yeah, I've never seen. I think I wouldn't recognize him.
You wouldn't recognize
him.
Who did you interview?
The Minister of Public Service and National Insurance.
Oh, Mr. Ranselrow?
Yeah, I want to talk about what's happening in the public service and national insurance.
I thought you would have gotten a little scoop interview on the former honorable, well, he's still honorable, Brent Simonet.
Well, he told you about it.
Yeah.
No scoop.
Yeah. No, he's done his rounds.
Yeah, and there's some conversations, as he said, that need to happen.
I told Rogat.
Total agreement.
Yeah, and we're gonna have that conversation with him.
A lot of conversations, beginning with, and I'm not gonna get into the race thing. Just he's a rich guy with a lot of money, which means his money is in everything. And so it's unlikely that the government will do business with
any one entity.
It's more likely than not that the government will do something. Yes.
It's difficult for them to avoid him.
Very difficult for them to avoid him.
The mere fact that he has his hands in many things.
So does that mean that these rich guys aren't supposed to come do some public service? Bahamian guys. Does that mean they not allowed to do public service?
I think they should be allowed to.
They're maybe the ones who should be doing it, because they're the ones who probably are less corruptible, theoretically. Listen, in order to be in politics, and I knew this from thinking about it, you got two socioeconomic groups that you be in politics: rich or poor. Nothing to lose, or everything to gain. Because if you middle class, that is a tax, my brother.
Sure enough.
Yeah.
You can't afford that?
Yeah.
Okay. There's no leeway.
And it's taxing in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Public service is a thankless vocation, job, position. And whatever you do, somebody on the side is going, why that Rogan Smith do that? What's wrong with her?
You cannot be perfection.
Yes. And
see, and you think anyone even thinks? I think probably the most sane person would be someone who just don't care.
That would be
actually,
me.
and actually, to get things done, you have to get there.
Yeah.
You have to get there.
And the number one thing you can't care about is getting reelected.
Well, that too. And the irony of that is, you have to dismiss people, but you got to listen to them too if you want to be elected, because you need to know what they're thinking.
Agreed.
So it's a balancing act that you have to. You got to be good enough to do it.
Yeah, you can't just be dismissive of the people now.
But the popularity thing. I heard Gowan Bowe the other day on TV.
I'm going to send both of you. There's an article I saw several days ago. Gentlemen don't enter politics. And it goes all the way back.
I want to read that.
It's not a local.
Yeah, I was going to say who wrote that. Okay.
Something called the Lancey Press.
Please.
And they talked about how in the 1700s,
gentlemen don't enter politics.
And the public just sat back and said, these are the intellectuals and men of honor. They're capable of making decisions for us. Well, we'll just let them do it.
Well, that's what Locke and those say. You representative politics is people who can make decisions that the populace won't make.
And we're seeing some of this now in full display to the north. Some guys wanted to be elected, and so they decided to go dirty.
Right? I think there's a dirty element. You see, here's the big thing, and George Washington said it, and I didn't know he said it until recently. But I've always held on to the fact that, and we've talked about it here before, that if you flip over the Declaration of Independence, which is ironic that we're talking about it today, when you look at the names listed, there are no parties.
No.
And George Washington said, and many scholars had said, that party politics will destroy democracy. And George Washington said, the enemy of democracy is partisanship.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because it's not the pursuit of the good.
No.
It's the pursuit of the benefit to me.
Absolutely. and was good for the party. And so,
you see? So Gowan Bowe was on the other day, and I was listening to him with some other people, and they were talking about what would you wish to happen. And what he said was, what I'd wish is for someone to be in leadership, or for there to be leadership who just focuses on that, on what is good for the country, not on the partisanship, et cetera, et cetera. We hear people talking about it all the time. The question is, there are so many forces, pulling you from that
person. Yes. So it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do. Just because of the demands of being a part of that and being successful in the political systems that we use to govern ourselves today. It's difficult not to be pulled in all those directions.
And I think it sounds those are beautiful words when someone like Gowan Bowe or somebody else says it, but we got to be realistic, and that's not how it works.
Reality of it is.
But you see, you know what though, you can like everything, right? You can pursue it.
You could.
So for instance, to me, and we've talked about this before, the number one thing that if I were in that seat that I would be pursuing is how to decentralize. Because if you do that, right? See, right now, the one person, everything flows to that one person or to that cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what creates even more of a problem, because when everyone is flowing to that the polarization of needs, right, creates havoc. Okay? So if you have less people coming to you, well, then that's less polarization, right? The smaller you go down into the community level, okay, a small community will have more in common, right, than the greater population. Don't you agree?
It's an argument for local government.
Yeah.
There is, a
strong local government.
A strong local government.
Yeah.
I would say that, and it's been said in different ways by different people, too much of anything is good for nothing.
Right.
And so
always balance.
Balance is key. Balance is key, because too much democracy is not good.
Well, I always say democracy should end at the election.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
Sometimes
I tell you what we're going to do when I get in, right? Well, let me do it.
Yeah, and I just say there's some things leaders have to just do, man. We ain't having no discussion about this. this is the way it's going to be. Because if you let democracy flow in its purest form, you got to say something. The big man got to say something. I got to say something. You got to say something.
And we even wait, so I got to listen.
We ain't going nowhere.
No, ain't going nowhere.
No, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, 5 years from now, make the move.
Do whatever you want to do.
It cuts both ways.
Yeah.
Because
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, because, like, to your point where you say you elected me to do something, just leave me alone to do it. What happens when, before the 5-year term ends, you were elected and you say within 30 days, within 90 days, within the first year this happens, and you don't do that?
Well, that's the point. That's why, and I think it doesn't happen because people then get taken up by special interests, et cetera, as opposed to doing what you said you were going to do.
But that also puts, we have an obligation, and again, people say variations on this. Being a good citizen is not only voting every 5 years. You got to participate, man. We not there.
What options do we have, though, Ace? We don't have a recall system. We have a very passive electorate. So we beat up our gums on social media and on the talk shows, but we don't. And occasionally we do a march for a day or two, and then it dies off and we're on to the next
that's the problem.
issue.
We have a passive electorate.
Sure.
We have a passive electorate because the system creates docile and passive people. Because although I don't believe in or subscribe to this, the belief is I can do nothing. The system is set up that way where you feel like you can't do anything. It's very difficult. We get involved in things. You can do something, but it is a very, very onerous and arduous task to do it.
It demands something of you.
You got to be spending 7 years to get one thing done.
No.
I spent 5 years to get 5 or 6 years with that immigration thing.
Yes,
an average person isn't interested in that.
But you persevered.
Right.
And we need to get to that.
That's the point.
But the average person isn't. We had this discussion today.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ronald Reagan did it. But I always make a joke about it. Yeah. I say, we go to Bay Street, the sun get hot, boy, we get a little hungry.
Out?
We are gone. We see the difference in countries around the world. In Hong Kong.
Protracted
protests. Man, we are going to stay here until you respond to us in a way that we think you ought to.
Remember,
or at least respond to us.
And people don't stop.
Yes, we're not there. We need to get there.
Yeah. We I don't know what it is. Someone once asked me, and I'll never forget this, and I don't know if I've ever said this on the radio, but I'm going to say it now. Someone said to me in 1982, that was Chogum, 84?
No, Chogum was 85.
85.
Yeah.
There was a reporter from The Economist, and I was driving. I'll never forget this. I had a Volkswagen Gol, and somehow I hooked up with this reporter. I was with the Nassau Guardian at the time, and I was driving, and I remember the exact spot. It was right by Goodman's Bay where that house is, right as you pass Goodman's Bay.
Right.
I think the government owns that house now, by the way, by the roundabout. Yeah. And he says to me, and I'd never thought about this, he says, how is it that Pinling is able to hold on to the government for 25 years without an army? Okay?
Yeah.
And, I had to, I responded, and it was like an immediate response, and the only thing I could think is, I said, well, everyone has a satellite. We are not oppressed people.
Yeah.
We talked about political victimization because you couldn't get a job, you couldn't get this or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't have any.
No, we didn't have the army
information.
Yeah.
Blackout.
Yeah.
You have satellite. the complete opposite of what you would have in an oppressive society, right?
Yeah.
They would ban satellite.
Yeah.
We had satellite. People had Mercedes and so we go to Travis Rest on the weekend to party.
Oasis, right?
Oasis or something with an S in it. Okay, so we have never really felt. You see, those people in Hong Kong have felt the brunt of a hammering.
We had some of it in the early parts of the 20th century.
Well,
and so that's when the cab drivers and people like that
that's when we had
shut down the town.
That was a cause.
Yeah, but we haven't quite gotten that kind of.
Well, when you think about it, the last big shift for us was independence. And we really wasn't into that like that. We still aren't into it like that. It wasn't a big thing. Some people went to England. They had a
because we
meeting.
didn't have to shed blood for it.
No,
We didn't have to fight
they
for
went
it,
to England.
You know?
They get a trip on BOAC.
Yeah, and listen, we got to go back home. It's Christmas.
Let's come back. They got to come, but we got to do this before Christmas. And then we come back, we do the flag, and we raise up in the Scouts March, and boom.
And England taking care of us, and we right next to America. We could we have access to pretty much all that we want.
We don't need no visa. Okay.
Can't be that.
We could go to Richards. They don't know about that.
They don't know about that.
You know about
right?
Richards?
No, sir.
They say Richards was a department store which they say Bahamians break.
Break?
Because Richard used to give everyone credit card.
Credit.
They say, and they used to give all the Bahamians credit card, Richard's credit card. They say they go on bankrupt on Bahamians. In those days, it was $33 round trip to go to Florida on Bahamas Airways.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we haven't felt pain.
Not that kind of pain.
No.
That's not to say obviously that
there are people hurting.
That people are not hurting, because they are.
Right.
But that level of
people disappearing and things.
Yes, we haven't had to experience that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that helps to drive or create the mindset where you go, yeah, this ain't happening.
I once said, and I'll never forget, and it was purely coincidental. I said, why can't I be like the people in Sans Souci who just go home and don't worry about a thing? And I'm not picking on the people in Sans Souci. I just used a suburb, right?
Yeah.
But you know what the irony about that is? You know what Sans Souci means in French? Without care. Okay? You go home to your flat screen, you pick up your Rattler, like Rogan Smith. Okay?
Mango.
Some people play,
Mango.
Okay. Full of it, no flip. Mango. Okay? And then when we get tired of mango, we move to grapefruit. Okay, and
that's collect Rattler then.
Uh-huh.
That's not Sans Rattler.
No, that's you have Sans, grapefruit, and collect mango. So anyway, you're very right though, and as a result, and in fact, I ran into a guy the other day. I was at a place. I'm going to call their name because they're helpful in this thing that we're doing on Friday, called Tops. And by the way, remind me, when we take the next break, talk about our sponsors. And Tops, say again? The lumber people, right? Yeah. And the guy said to me, he said, I did a service PSA on Jones and Co. And he said, man, I like your service PSA. He says, in fact, I can tip these guys right now because they give good service. Yeah. And I said to him, you know why we don't often get good service? Because we don't demand it. See, that's our thing too. We don't. It's just our whole thing. It's not only just with the government and democracy. We don't even demand good service from the private sector.
Oh, I do.
Rogan, by the way, I'm putting. By the way, in the world of silos.
I know.
You occupy your own silo. You realize that, right? It's called Rogan silo.
I understand.
It's not even she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not standard behavior.
No, it's not standard behavior. We will go. We whisper.
Yeah.
Why do you think they say? Why do you think they looking over there? Why you had to say? Why are you drunken in line? Why? But no action.
Well, when you're in a restaurant, there's some logic to.
Somebody spitting in your food? Hey,
as they say, this thing go with sense.
But you can demand service without being rude and belligerent.
That's not the point.
Yeah, some people are still sensitive to the mere fact that you send something back to the kitchen.
The fact that you
say something
bold enough to question whatever.
Yeah.
But you're
you
right.
think that's what happened to me that time when I call the name of the restaurant because it no longer exists. When I was in Lums and I thought that the French fries tasted like doo-doo. You think that's what happened? You think the potatoes were just rotten?
I think that's what happened.
Potatoes were just rotten.
I'm pretty sure.
I think the potatoes were just rotten, man.
Yeah, potatoes.
But no, you're right. Mm-hmm. And of course, part of the reason we don't demand excellence, your fellow who you grew up with down the street say, "Oh, I think he is," but
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well,
You're right.
Yeah.
But yes, we should do more.
But I tell Rogan every day, and I'm going to shift to something that I want to ask you about. I tell Rogan every day that when I drive from home, and I turn that corner, and I'm feeling, like, oh God, I gotta go to work and this and all that, and my life is a mess, and all these type of things that we all feel we don't have it all going on, right? Mm-hmm. And then I say, boy, wonder how the people driving awake in the Sudan feel.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
They not.
Wonder the people who driving awake in Syria feel.
That's right.
And all them people who got on the train from Guatemala.
Yeah.
Feel. How do they feel?
Perspective.
Okay.
How do people who hear and don't have a job feel?
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right? It's just all perspective, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I want to ask you now. I'm going to make a little kind of we're going to take a break?
Yeah.
But good, because I want to make a seismic shift to ask you about something that I feel is happening and that we won't appreciate it, but we can talk about it, and we'll see what happens on the other side of what I'm talking about and how we react to it. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith on Ed Fields Live. I've got to thank our sponsors, Roman Meal Bread. They've been with us from day one, as has been Insurance Management, Arawak Homes, Sunshine Insurance, Bristol Wines and Spirits. Of course, we also want to thank Wendy's, Coca-Cola, Burger King, and Kentucky Fried Chicken, Subway, Superwash, and you can't. How do you go? You washes it, you dries you. Yeah, that's a.
Washes it, presses it, cleans it,
entertains
it.
I told you I have my own thing. So anyway, got to thank Kelly's House and Home, and just want to remind folks that get ready for the celebration in summertime madness. You only get a couple of days left at our Kelly's House and Home pre-independence sale. Catch the sale Friday, June 28th through Monday, July 8th. Save 20% off on toys, baby items, linens, paint, and paint supplies, except on net items. We have Independence memorabilia from Mohavian flags to tumblers and even blankets. Splash it out this summer with pools and inflatables, new patio furniture, and so much more. They got some nice barbecue grills in there too, Rogan Smith. I saw them. Mm-hmm. And them I think they still have them rider mowers, man. You need one of them. Shop Kelly's House and Home pre-independence sale Friday, June 28th through Monday, July 8th. Happy Independence. And they got those flag bracket holders and flags. Get your flags out, folks. Let's get it. This is Kelly's House and Home. Yeah. Hey, you know what I wanted to talk to you about? You talk about things, and there's always going to be a lot of cloudiness and a lot of noise, no matter what environment you're in. But you have to. I was talking to Rogan Smith the other day about clarity and being clear. Mm-hmm. I am of the opinion. There was a young man, not a young man, but a guy we had come in to do a study for us who had been here 10 years prior, and he came back to update the study. And what he saw was tremendous progress. Mm-hmm. He wasn't here when the airport was here. He wasn't here when the roads had been done around the New Providence. Mm-hmm. He wasn't here when we redid Marlborough Square and Pompey Square and the new sidewalks. So he saw all of the port being moved, which was a huge thing. Mm-hmm. I believe that we are on the verge of another transformational, and maybe the transformational scenario in our history. And I'm going to just outline some things to people. We have this crisis going on with BPL. But what's on the ground is those new engines for those new plants, the first new engines in 40 years. Okay? That can transform our energy delivery from to a reliable and hopefully cheaper source of energy,
which reverberates through the system.
Right.
Everything
okay?
feeds off of that energy.
And one of the things I think why people are not in a complete Hong Kong mode is because they saw those engines rolling down to Clifton Pier. The port, the cruise port, okay, transformational. Working on this Central Park concept, right? Things like the central bank, the potential, and I say potential because there's a lot development of east Street, right? Because there's a lot that must go into that. But the preliminaries have been done. The new U.S. Embassy, the new Supreme Court complex, the turning of Central Bank into a museum. The transformation of Southern Recreation Grounds. These are big spaces.
They are.
Okay?
These are big things.
And big things.
Yeah,
the cruise port, the
BPL.
Yeah. So I think I could be wrong, but these are things you see. These aren't like, well, we would like to have and all. These are things that that port development is months away, I guess, from hopefully closing, and by the end of the year it will be done. That's a big chunk of our economy, right? What is the feeling in the office of the Prime Minister with regard to, I suppose I want to say, the urgency of getting these? I know they have to get it right, but and of course there's the Freeport scenario with the Carnival Port and the Arcaya deal.
Yes.
This is some, people aren't interested now.
They're not, except to say we ain't see it yet.
Once they start seeing things rolling.
Yeah.
And this is the difficult. It's difficult to actually do it, but this is part of that difficult stage now, because people are waiting and people are impatient. But just what you said, believe me, there's a lot of focus in there on getting these things done, especially Grand Bahama. I can tell you that. Just had a long conversation about it yesterday. But you got to get from here to there.
Right.
And that's difficult, trying to keep people cool while you do what you need to do.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's a discussion of local government by 220, 221, which again is seismic.
Yeah, we were just talking about the importance of having that local control. So these are huge things, man. And this is what we're looking at is on the magnitude and above of the roadworks. That's how transformational is going. Much more than that. Yeah. That's how transformational it's going to be. And so some big things to get your arms around, and very ambitious. So your head got to be someplace else to try to do all these things, but they got to be done, and that's where the Prime Minister is.
It's not like it's not like in the past we were always very happy with you build a new school, you build a new dock, or you fix the old dock in Acklands, or you fix the road, pave a road. Those were just cosmetic in my view.
Yeah, the country needs more than that. The country needs these big things now because we kind of been treading water for a little while. The country needs these things if we really are going to start to come into the 21st century. Talk about the port development and all that. Redevelopment of downtown Nassau. We got to do it.
Who was on Monday? Who do we have on Monday? I forget now.
Feels like such a ball down.
Who do we have, Ken? You in charge of keeping that. No, who did we just had?
Oh my God, this is crazy.
But we were talking about but
I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, but we were talking about the impact of these things and how Bahamians, when things are happening, there's a lot of discontent. But you have to, the thing I might
listen. It's the only way, man.
Because we were talking about the NEC and all these type of things, and I really forget who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is there a stomach for sea change to the extent, like, for instance, you're familiar with the NEC, of course. You work out of that office, so you know what that is. And it's, to me, once we get past the physical, like the port and the BPL and all that, then there's we've gone through like 3 stages, right? We had the roads, we had the airport, we had this, we had that. Now we're going through these other things. Now the next stage in my mind is the mental.
Yes, which again is
okay.
You talk about problems,
right?
You're talking about challenges because you're talking about changing the whole mindset, changing the culture.
But you know where I think it comes from first? I think that mental comes from the leadership, because let's face it,
absolutely,
that the leadership is of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So like when you look at things like the NEC, okay, and by the way, we had Carlton. So we had. So
okay, I go through my long notes.
when we had the old guy. Hey, the old guy. The old guy, I have to remember.
I know. Yes. Kill me, sorry.
The young people can't. So anyway,
trying to figure out too.
But the NEC, the National Economic Council, which to me is like one of those barriers, right? Because it's a protectionist shield, and as a result of that, we haven't opened up to the extent that we can open up. And we were talking about opening up. You have to always have your finger on the button.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
there's always going to have to be some of that.
Right. But the door can't be closed.
Yeah, but you're right. The mindset is going to have to go. You're going to have to get a little adventurous and bold and, we can do this. Because It can be done. We need to do it. It's all right that we didn't do it before. We're going to do this.
Well, it is what it is. In terms of before, you didn't. But now, what is the time now?
I don't know that a lot of people are there yet. Yeah. I know what you're talking about. And again, that's the biggest challenge, is the mental thing, where you prepared to take a chance. But risks are not bad.
Yeah.
A calculated risk is what you take.
Yeah. But we always, and this is what I can't understand, every single leader, every single cabinet minister, every single MP, every single economist has always used Singapore as a model. But you know what Singapore did? They didn't shut down. They opened up, and then they monitored and controlled and tweaked. And as a result, they have the best and the brightest, and their average citizen is blooming.
Yeah, and they did some things
education
that I'm not sure we're ready for.
Like what?
They sent some politicians to jail. They weren't talking about it. They sent them to jail.
Okay, well, we needed that.
Yeah.
And they did some other things.
Emulate
you
everything.
fool around, you did this.
They don't
sent you
that
to jail.
Leadership.
Well, again, we need to get there.
Yeah,
there's some hard things that go with that. Singapore didn't just overnight.
No. It took an individual. No, it took an individual, but it took an individual who said, "This is the direction we're going to go."
This we're going to go in.
And by the way, he stayed in power for a long time.
Yes, he did, because he was fortunate enough to get some people around him who understood and bought into what he was trying to do, which is another important part, because you could never do it alone. You could have all these visions. You got to sell it. And if you're not able to sell it and get enough people on your team, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right?
Whatever happened to, and I guess this is kind of weird to bring this up, but whatever happened to some people going to jail? Because that was kind of like in the heyday in the first spot.
Some people may still go to jail. Who knows?
All right.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, we don't control that, right?
We don't control that.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. Yeah. But I had the question. My first 3 briefings. I think that's all I heard, and I'm like, but you don't just send people to jail.
Right.
We were so
because you want to.
We're so
send people to jail.
You know what?
It's
like though? It's like we are so unused to that.
Yes.
Right. It's like going into a store with cake.
Yeah.
And you never had no cake before, and you say, have some cake. And you go just eat a bunch of cake, but you don't realize if you eat all the cake, you end up with diabetes.
You're gonna get sick as well. You're gonna get sick as well.
Okay, so we just want to do what we want to do without.
It's a process, and I hope whatever happens, and I'm not speaking to these cases, whatever happens, that all people in public life understands that there can be some consequences.
Yeah.
If you don't,
because it isn't just the top guys. So,
just because I always say, for example, when you go to these ministries and departments, politicians working in there, man, just regular people. So we're the ones who everybody's involved in what's going on, and so people have to believe that there are some consequences for bad behavior.
Someone sent me a thing today. I can't read it on there. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to try to paraphrase it. But basically, someone in a public service setting wrote them a note.
I see.
They read them a little note.
Yeah. All right.
Someone in the public service.
They were trying to get something, and someone wrote them a note.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later, because I really don't want to.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure it happens.
At the basic level,
happens.
This expectation of us.
Yes, this expectation.
I think the most important person in government to me is a man named Jeff Lloyd. And the reason I say that is because you talk about this evolution of the mind, right? That has to come from the beginning.
From the beginning, which is why what they're doing over there in education is so important.
I do not throw litter on the ground because when I was in grade school, I was made to realize that throwing litter on the ground first was going to get some negative reinforcement.
Yep.
And B, that this was not something a decent human being did.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And, things like that we did, that we took for granted, that was part of growing up, and this is my sack side.
Yeah.
Part of your punishment, that was the easy part. Any paper that was on the grass, you went and picked it up.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
First of all, if you got caught putting it there, that was another story altogether.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I understand your boy used to come and say, who getting beaten today?
True. True.
So, which means it's up to you,
It's totally up to you. But again, you're talking about creating that mindset and making people understand how you behave. I don't know that we take enough time to show people, remind people, tell them this is how civilized people behave.
Why are we afraid of doing that?
We expect people to just know it. Not possible.
But why do we still? I mean, I don't know if this is a correct statement, but it seems to me that bad, and I know this seems very juvenile to say it this way, right? But bad behavior is acceptable or rewarded or laughed about, or whereas people who do the right thing, they're scoffed at.
It's the easiest thing to do.
You think? But I mean, you think that exists everywhere?
That's not everyone.
No, I'm just saying you get this feeling when you see there are certain. Listen, forget about it this way. Look at how we go through, say, a street light. I mean, traffic rules, right? The reality is our society does not punish negative behaviors.
The police is to punish that
that's
behavior,
what I agree,
right?
But we don't. So that's just an extension of our culture. We don't even do that.
That's just a matter of police not being there in the moment when it happens. Now, or
have you ever not seen something happen and the police right there? You never seen that in your life?
I've seen police on scenes where they focus on other things and then somebody goes through a red light or something like that. I'm sure it happens. Yeah. And shame on those people who don't enforce the law.
Yeah, but it's a combination. I ain't gonna put that only on the police.
No, it's endemic.
The courts have to work with them too.
That's true.
Once we get there, the police and the courts, they arrest them, send them to the courts, and whatever.
I just think that we have a very, very permissive society.
We do. I don't know if it's that backlash, because at some point we weren't so permissive.
You drive from here to wherever you live. See, I can pick any point. It don't matter where you live. Drive from here to wherever you live and look at the violations on the way home.
Yeah.
Look at the amount of physical violations, number of spheres on the way home.
But people will do what they're allowed to get away with.
That's the point. That's the permissiveness I'm saying. Litter, driving, car conditions, building conditions. You name it. Okay, smoking. It's all over. That's the point. And if we can somehow, Paul Thompson used to say this long ago, if we can just rein those little behaviors in. And I don't know if it's true. I don't know the psychology of it.
Yeah,
but he says that if you rein those little behaviors in, then people start to be respectful of things.
Of other things, the bigger thing. Well,
Because most people aren't involved in the bigger things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the little things that most people are involved in.
It's the little things that most of us do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what creates a lack of order.
And, of course, how do we address those? We start with a family at home, which we don't have a lot of. Mom's trying to get to work, and, man, she ain't got no time to go through all that. Sit your backside here and do this. Yeah. I go on, just be here when I come back. Yeah. And in the absence of that, what did we use before time? We used the school and we used the church. Mm-hmm. People don't have any respect for either one of those institutions today. Agreed. They don't even have the time to fill the void that's there from the lack of having a family that provides that for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, and back in the day when we were growing up, even the single families, because the single parent families, usually the single mother, you didn't worry about that. You had Grammy, you had your cousins and uncles, and they filled in. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happens today.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we're coming near to the show. I hope that, and we're going to, obviously, you come back from time to time. It's going to be interesting to mark this day, which is July 4th. I don't think we'll forget it.
Yes, it is.
To say we talked about this beginning of something transformative that, I think it's such magnitude, Regan Smith, right? That 5 years ago or 20 years ago, you didn't even think it would be possible for all this to happen.
True.
But it is. But it's happening. Some of it is happening. And we'll say maybe 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, if that is taking any kind of root. Did we ever think that Nassau Airport would look the way it does? I don't know. We were just hoping that,
I don't know. We thought about it.
We just hoped we could get some not smelling bathrooms and the baggage belt way.
And that it wasn't. We could go in the airport and not get read up. with the rain, right? So, right, we weren't thinking that.
That's true, 'cause you're right. You had no Jet Bay.
No, right? Yeah. So, let's see what happens 12 months from now. And see where we are. See where we are. Mm-hmm. But I'm always hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm always hopeful, and you're right. Leadership is important.
Yeah.
Have the vision, and there are some people, as in all situations, everybody ain't gonna be on board with you.
No.
You get 100 people. If you get 10 people who pull on the engine, you're happy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have 10 people around in this engine to pull.
That's what I was going to ask. Does the inner circle get a feeling that they know that what the direction that they're going in is the right direction and they must stay the course?
I think they do, beginning with the Prime Minister. And so, you start with him, as you said, and we all know rises and falls on leadership.
Okay.
And so I think they are comfortable that they know where they're going, and there's still some heavy lifting to do. They got to do some lifting.
And while you're doing it, you're getting pulled.
Oh, every single day.
While you do, I tell Rogan, when you go in the bush, when you're trying to get your family out of the hovel, out of the shack, and you got to clean down the bush.
That's right.
They don't care that in the bush got prickle and poison wood.
No, don't have nothing to do with it.
Just get me out of here.
Give me the house.
Before we go, Ace, you've ever had any political ambition?
None.
And
I don't think I ever said this publicly. Tennyson Wells, bless his heart, 20-something years ago.
Do you know who that is?
No.
What?
He was sitting me down and he was like, Ace, you got to do this, man.
Really?
And I said, I like you. Ain't nothing happening.
Ain't nothing happening?
No, sir.
Fields, you finished with that too?
No.
It's not a smart thing for me.
No, and I had this conversation with some MPs the other day. The things that politicians have to do to be successful, I'm not prepared to do them.
In fact, the chances are you'll be unsuccessful. It's weighted against you. Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, Rogan Smith, and I think you fit this bill as well, is that people like us can do much more. So not everyone is suited to be, in that sphere.
I don't like.
I think I can do what I need to do. I feel that I've made some contributions.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'll continue to try to make some without having to go into that sphere because it ain't for me.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, we gotta go.
Gotta go.
Happy Independence. I won't be here, but
happy Independence to everyone. Yeah, let's have a barbecue and then go out and see the concert. Remember on Saturday, man.
Saturday.
Come out Saturday.
All right.
Come out.
My wife is listening, so
come out on Saturday between 12 and 8 p.m. Rake and scrape, Bahamian food, the whole thing. We'll see you then. Bye.
Adios.